Canada. Just one word. And it changed everything for me. I still remember the first time I saw that word on a YouTube video. Students smiling in snow, working part-time jobs, building a future from nothing. That day, something lit up inside me. A dream I never thought I was allowed to dream suddenly felt real. My name is Maninder Singh. I'm 25, and I live in a small house in Ludhiana, Punjab. My father runs a local hardware store. My mother manages the home, and our lives are simple, predictable. But deep down, I've never wanted a simple life. I want to study in Canada. Not because it's easy, but because I believe great things are born from great risks. And for me, this dream is not just about going abroad. It's about becoming the person I've always believed I could be. The road ahead won't be easy. Money is tight, my English is average, and the system is tough. But every great journey starts with one decision. And today, I decide to begin. They say the first step toward your dream is the hardest. For me, it was walking into that IELTS coaching center. I still remember my first day there, nervous, unsure, sitting at the back of the class, quietly watching others speak fluent English while I struggled to form a single sentence. Every grammar rule felt like a mountain, and every mock test felt like a defeat. But I didn't leave. I stayed, because I knew that if I couldn't face my fears here, I had no chance in Canada. At home, I pretended everything was fine. My father would ask, "How's it going?" And I'd smile, saying, "Good, Papa." But deep inside, I was scared. What if I failed? What if I let them down? Every night, I sat in my room with my old grammar book and whispered words to myself. I am Maninder. I want to go to Canada. I am preparing for IELTS. Simple sentences, but they meant everything to me, because those words were my future, my freedom. The pressure was real. Friends started leaving the classes one by one. Some said it was too hard. Others gave up after one attempt. But I reminded myself of something. Dreams don't come true just because you want them. They come true when you're willing to suffer for them. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. My listening improved. My speaking became clearer. I started asking questions in class. I stopped hiding. I stopped fearing. Then came the big day, my IELTS exam. I wore my best shirt, held my ID card with sweaty hands, and walked into that exam hall with a prayer in my heart. I wasn't just writing a test. I was writing the next chapter of my life. Passing the IELTS exam felt like touching the clouds. I got a 6.5 overall band. Not perfect, but enough. For the first time in months, I breathed freely. I was one step closer to Canada. But the real challenge had just begun. Studying abroad costs money, a lot of money. Tuition fees, GIC, medicals, visa filing, air tickets. It was like a mountain standing in front of me, and I had no equipment to climb it. I looked at my father, sitting quietly in his shop, calculating bills on a second-hand calculator, unaware that his son was silently calculating dreams. One evening, I told him, "Papa, I passed IELTS. I want to start my application for Canada." He looked at me, not angry, not surprised, just silent. Then he said, "How much will it cost?" I gave him the figure. It was more than his yearly income. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said something I'll never forget. "If you're ready to fight for it, I'll support you. We don't have much, but we'll try. That night, I heard my parents whispering in the next room, selling a small plot of land, borrowing from a relative, cutting down household expenses. Every rupee was a sacrifice, and every sacrifice made me more determined. I took a part-time job, teaching school kids English, delivering groceries, anything I could find. I skipped hangouts, ignored new clothes, and walked instead of riding my bike just to save a few rupees. Some relatives mocked us. They are wasting money. Let him stay here and work in the shop. But I kept quiet. Because when your vision is clear, other people's opinions become noise. I collected documents, paid tuition, paid GIC, medicals done, files submitted. Now, all I could do was wait. Every day I checked my email at least 10 times. Every beep on my phone felt like it could change my life. Then, the email came. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sky was overcast, and the power had gone out, like usual. I was sitting in my room, refreshing my inbox for the 100th time that week. My heart raced every time the page loaded. Then, it happened. Your Canada student visa has been approved. I froze. My hands were shaking. I blinked to make sure it wasn't a dream. It wasn't. I ran outside, holding my phone in the air like a trophy. Ma, Papa, it's here. I got it. My mother dropped the spoon she was holding. My father looked up from his ledger. For a few seconds, no one said a word. Then my mother hugged me tightly. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her tears on my shoulder. That evening, our small house felt like a palace. Neighbors came by. Some congratulated us. Some acted surprised. Some still whispered, "Let's see if he manages there." But I didn't care. I had something now that money couldn't buy. A chance. We started preparing. Shopping for jackets, packing bags, printing documents. I visited relatives, met friends, and spent quiet evenings walking the streets of Ludhiana, knowing I might not see them again for a long time. My father called me into the shop one day. He handed me a small envelope. "There's not much in it," he said, "but keep it with you." It had 2,000 rupees and a photo of our family. The night before my flight, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I was finally going to live the life I had imagined 1,000 times in my head. I sat on the rooftop, looked at the stars, and whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, everything changes." And it did. The airplane touched down in Toronto at 6:45 a.m. I looked out of the window and saw a white world, snow everywhere. Everything felt silent, still, and unreal. I had made it to Canada. As I walked through immigration, holding my documents close to my chest, I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. One officer asked me a few questions. I answered with practiced confidence. He looked at me for a moment, then stamped my passport. That stamp, it was more than just ink. It was the beginning of everything I had worked for. Outside, the cold hit me like a wave. I had never felt anything like it. My breath turned into clouds. My fingers felt numb even with gloves. The taxis were lined up. I gave the driver an address to a basement room I had booked online. It was small, shared, and far from the city, but it was a start. As the car moved through the wide roads and high-rise buildings, I stared out silently. It didn't feel like a movie anymore. It felt real, and it was a little scary. When I reached my room, I dropped my bags and sat on the bed. The walls were bare. The heater was noisy. And for the first time, I felt the weight of being alone. No voices in the kitchen. No mother asking if I had eaten. No father returning from the shop. Just silence. That night, I stared at the ceiling, wide awake. My dreams had brought me here. But now, the real test had begun. Canada was not just snow and selfies. It was expensive groceries, part-time job hunts, and a completely new way of life. And I was just one boy in a city full of strangers. But I reminded myself, you didn't come this far to come this far. I pulled the blanket tighter, closed my eyes, and told myself that tomorrow I would start building again. From zero. Because this was not the end of my story. This was the beginning. My second day in Canada began with a simple question. How do I earn? I had limited money in my account. Just enough to survive a few weeks. Rent, groceries, bus passes. It all added up fast. I needed a part-time job, and I needed it quickly. I printed out my resume, which, to be honest, had nothing impressive on it. No Canadian experience. No fancy certificates. Just one line. Willing to work hard. Fast learner. I walked through the freezing streets of Toronto, entering coffee shops, convenience stores, restaurants, one by one. Smiling. Asking politely. Leaving resumes. Hoping. Most places said, we'll call you. Some said, sorry, we need someone with experience. And some didn't even look up. By the end of the week, I had nothing. Just frozen fingers and fading confidence. One evening, I came back to my basement room, dropped my bag, and sat on the floor. I stared at the heater and asked myself, was this a mistake? I didn't come here for this. I came to build a future, not to get ignored, not to feel invisible. But then, I remembered my parents back home. I remembered my father's quiet nod when he sold his land. I remembered my mother's smile as she packed my bag. And so, I got back up. The next day, I got lucky. A small Indian restaurant in the suburbs needed a kitchen helper. The owner was kind. He looked at me and said, "You're from Punjab? You'll manage. Come tomorrow." It paid minimum wage. The work was hard. Washing dishes, cleaning floors, peeling vegetables. My back hurt. My hands cracked. But I was earning. I was surviving. Every night, I came back exhausted. But I still studied. I still believed. Because this job wasn't the end. It was just a step. Some nights I cried quietly. Not because I was weak, but because I missed home and because I was trying so hard. And sometimes, when you're building your dream, the loneliness becomes louder than anything else. But I kept going, because deep down, I knew every great story has a struggle before the rise. And I hadn't come this far to stop now. There was one night that changed everything. It was mid-January. The cold outside was brutal, but what I felt inside was even colder. My body ached from 10 hours of standing in the restaurant kitchen. My fingers were cut. My shoes were wet. And my mind completely drained. I came back to my basement room and found the heating had stopped working. The room was freezing. I wrapped myself into blankets, shivering, and stared at the ceiling. That night, something broke inside me. Why am I here? I whispered to myself. I had no family here. No real friends. Just work, bills, and empty days. I was missing classes. My grades were slipping. My landlord was rude. My savings were running low again. And then the thought came, the one I never wanted to face. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I should go back. For hours, I sat in silence, eyes open, frozen not just by the weather, but by fear. Fear that I had failed, that all the sacrifices were for nothing, that I was chasing a dream too big for someone like me. I looked at my phone, no missed calls, no texts. I was alone in every sense of the word. And just when I felt I couldn't take it anymore, something shifted. I remembered the old photo my father gave me, the one in the envelope with 2,000 rupees. I took it out. The edges were worn, but the faces smiled back at me. My mother, father, and me. Simple, pure, hopeful. And suddenly, my tears fell. Not from pain, from remembrance. From the reminder that I wasn't just here for myself, I was here for them. That night, I made a decision. I wrote one sentence in my notebook. You are not going to quit. I set a new plan. I would cut every unnecessary expense. I would balance work and studies. I would wake up earlier, stay focused longer, be sharper, smarter, stronger. That was the lowest point of my journey. And also, the turning point. Because after that night, I never looked back. Something changed after that night. It wasn't the world around me, it was me. I started waking up earlier, reviewing my class notes with a fresh mind, and managing my job shifts with new discipline. I no longer let exhaustion defeat me. I started carrying flashcards in my pocket to learn new words while commuting. I even practiced speaking in English with my classmates without fear or shame. People noticed. My boss at the restaurant said, "You've become faster, focused." My professor said, "Maninder, your last assignment was impressive." For the first time since I landed in Canada, I started to feel capable. I got promoted at the restaurant from dishwasher to front counter helper. It paid better. I started saving again, every single dollar. And with every small win, I reminded myself, you are rebuilding your life one brick at a time. I also joined a small online community of international students. We shared struggles, tips, job leads, and encouragement. It felt like family, people who understood. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A guest at the restaurant, an Indian businessman, noticed me. "You speak well," he said. "Are you a student?" I nodded. "I'm opening a small logistics company," he added. "Would you like to help part-time?" Data entry, customer calls, real office experience. It was a small opportunity, but for me, it felt huge. I agreed. That part-time job became my first real experience in the professional world. I learned how to talk to clients, handle emails, prepare reports, and most importantly, I learned how to believe in myself again. I still remember walking out of that office one evening, the winter wind brushing against my face, the city lights glowing around me, and one thought echoing in my heart. You're not just surviving anymore, you're rising. Graduation day. I stood in a room full of students from different parts of the world, wearing the same gown, holding the same degree. But for me, it meant so much more. This wasn't just a piece of paper. This was proof that I had survived, that I had grown, and that I was ready to step into a new world. After the ceremony, I walked back home alone, thinking about how far I had come. From washing dishes in silence, to standing on a stage with my name called out. And yet, this was just the beginning. A few weeks later, I applied for a post-graduation work permit. I updated my resume, cleaned it up, highlighted every skill I had learned, from communication to office work to time management. I didn't wait for luck. I reached out. I emailed companies. I followed up. I even walked into small businesses just like I did that first week in Canada. Only this time, I wasn't afraid. And then it happened. A medium-sized logistics company, ironically, a competitor of the small office I once worked at, invited me for an interview. I wore my best formal shirt, practiced my answers, and entered with quiet confidence. The manager said, "You don't have Canadian education in logistics, but you have experience. And something else, hunger." I was hired. Full-time, decent salary, real career path. I walked out of that building, sat at a bus stop, and cried. Not because I was weak, but because I had finally done something they never expected me to do. My relatives who had once said, "He's wasting money." My classmates who had laughed at my broken English. Even the old version of me, the scared boy who nearly gave up on that cold January night. They were all wrong. I called my father that evening. He said nothing for a few seconds. Then he said quietly, "I knew you'd do it." And I believed him. My first full-time paycheck arrived on a Friday. I opened the email, saw the deposit in my account, and stared at the numbers. It wasn't millions, but it was more than anything I had ever earned. I sat still for a moment, letting the weight of that moment settle in. I had earned this. Every single dollar. I opened my banking app and transferred a portion of it. Not to myself, not to my savings, but straight to my father's account. I didn't say anything. I just sent a message. "For everything you gave up so I could rise." That evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice cracked as she said, "You've done enough, Beta. We just want you to be happy." But they didn't know. I had never felt happier than I did in that moment. A few months later, I booked a flight back to India, my first visit since I left. When I reached home, my mother opened the door. She didn't speak. She just hugged me like she was holding her entire world in her arms. My father stood quietly behind, eyes filled with something he rarely showed, pride. That week, I did everything I had dreamed of. I took them to a nice restaurant. I helped renovate the shop. I upgraded their phone. But more than gifts, I gave them peace. The kind that comes when a parent knows their child is okay, that all their sacrifices were worth it. On my last night in Ludhiana, I sat on the rooftop under the stars, just like I had before leaving. Only this time, I wasn't the same boy. I was stronger, wiser, and most of all, grateful. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it. Not just me. All of us. My parents. My past. My pain. Every challenge that once broke me had built me." People often ask me now, "How did you do it? What was your secret?" And I smile, because the truth is, there was no secret. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the richest. I wasn't even the most confident. I was just a boy who refused to give up. I was the son of a small shopkeeper in Ludhiana. I struggled with English. I was rejected more times than I can count. I cried alone in a cold basement room. I nearly quit. But each time I fell, I stood back up. And that was my power. Today, I live in Canada. I work in a company that values me. I help other students who are just starting their journey. I send money home. I visit my parents. And every now and then, I walk past the same airport I once entered with fear in my heart. And I smile. Because that boy, the one who stood there with trembling hands and a suitcase full of dreams, he became unstoppable. And if you're listening to this, thinking you're too small, too poor, too broken to make it, you're wrong. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to start. Be consistent. Be humble, be hungry, and most importantly, believe in your story. Because ordinary people do extraordinary things when they dare to dream and never stop walking. This was my journey. I'm Maninder Singh, and this was just the beginning. If you've come this far, it means you felt something. Maybe you saw a part of yourself in me. Maybe you're just starting out. Or maybe you're standing at the edge of a dream, wondering if it's worth it. Let me tell you this. It is. You may not have the perfect background. You may face rejection. You may cry some nights and question everything. But none of that means you're not meant for something bigger. Because what separates those who make it isn't talent, isn't money. It's belief. Believe that you can rise. Believe that your story matters. Believe that no matter how small your beginning, your ending can be powerful. So don't wait. Start learning. Start saving. Start dreaming boldly. And when life pushes you down, get back up with even more fire. This was my story. Now it's time to write yours. What will you do with your dream? Because someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear your story next. And remember, if Maninder, a simple boy from Ludhiana, can rise from struggle to success, so can you. Every dream starts small. Every journey begins with one brave step. So if this story inspired you, taught you something, or made you believe a little more in yourself, like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to English Speaking Tree, where every story helps you grow your confidence, your skills, and your future. Together, let's grow. One leaf, one lesson, and one dream at a time.